Hello, my fellow Extraordinary Americans. I'm Samaddar, and this is Extraordinary America. What is Extraordinary America about? You see, American identity is about freedom, the opportunity for a better life, and the pursuit of happiness. Welcome to Extraordinary America. For today's guest, we have John Kailunas II. As a first-generation immigrant, John embraced the values of hard work, commitment, and trust from an early age. These principles laid the foundation for his flourishing career in the financial industry, which he began in 1988 on a kitchen table. Driven by ambition, John achieved the American dream and built a firm with over $3 billion in assets under management and assets under administration. In the first part of his career, John focused on creating income for his family. In the second half, he dedicated himself to making a meaningful impact within the industry. He has received numerous national accolades throughout his journey, including being named one of the Hot 100 by Investment News, recognizing him as one of the top movers and shakers in finance. John is the host of C4G Sales Success podcast, a valuable resource for professional salespeople aiming to grow, learn, and enhance their bottom line. Each episode features actionable strategies, engaging discussions, and personal insights designed to inspire listeners to embrace challenges and seize opportunities. Topics include refining sales techniques, building strong client relationships, and finding motivation to tackle everyday obstacles. John's most recent collaboration is the Mission Retirement Workbook, co-authored with Kevin Burwell, CFP, CHFC, and CLU and CASL. This workbook is designed to assist individuals in navigating the complexities of a retirement journey that can last over 30 years. It emphasizes identifying what truly matters to you and your family, providing a clear framework for crafting a successful and fulfilling retirement plan tailored to unique goals. He's an extraordinary American, and I'm glad to have him on the show. John, are you there?
Yes, sir.
John,
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come on this podcast and share your story, your knowledge, and your wisdom. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got started?
Yeah, I started right out of school. I had a business venture that didn't do well, and so my dad was in insurance sales, and I started that and sort of built my career from there. I worked under my dad's firm for about 18 months and then went out on my own with other Fortune 500 companies and worked my way up from sales into sales management and then left and started my own firm.
So, John, could you tell a little bit more about your journey of like how you went from working on your dad's firm and like how did your vision and goal and strategic vision for your life develop over the years?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. And I think I was really searching, Cosmos, for something that wasn't in front of me. I was really looking for a mentor, someone I could believe in, someone that could sort of teach me the ropes. And I didn't find that in the organizations I was filtered in. And then I realized that it's probably simply up to me and that I wasn't going to find that perfect mentor. Maybe I was a little naive. I thought I'd find that person I could just fit in under his wing and or her wing and learn. So I started piecemealing it together and then realized that I had the characteristics, or at least some of the characteristics, to start my own firm. And if I surrounded myself with talented people, I could build a firm on my own.
I see. So, John, what is like the motive? Like, like a lot of people, like they just end up doing like jobs for the rest of their life, or they're in corporate America. Like, what is the motivational factor that allowed you to like start your own firm when like most people don't tend to do so?
Yeah, I think it was fear of failure. I didn't want to go back. I saw the lifestyle that was afforded to people in America ahead of me, right? My uncle became a doctor here. My mom immigrated from Latvia, and I didn't want to go backwards. I thought it was sort of our duty as an American to go forward, to push it forward. And I realized that if I wasn't going to find it in a corporate America, that I needed to create it on my own.
Yeah, one of the reasons I'm asking, John, is a lot of people want to leave corporate America and like start their own firm, but they're actually, ironically, they're afraid of failure. Like when it comes to starting their own business and like the risk and the financial risks that come with it. So, from your perspective, how should somebody who's in corporate America or doing their own job leave that and like start their own company?
Well, preparation gives you confidence, right? And that confidence will allow you to be fearless. And I think a lot of times we focus in on what we don't have instead of what we do have. And I think a lot of times that we don't have enough faith in ourselves and our abilities. And so my advice would be to prepare, over prepare, and then make that jump. And you're going to fail. You're going to fail. That's not, it's not even the quotient not to fail. It's part of the success formula, right? And you learn from those failures and you have grit and persistency and keep on getting up if you've been knocked down. I've been knocked down a bunch of times in a variety of different ways, and I keep trying to do the right thing and getting up every day and pursuing my goal as a job.
So, John, what you're saying is so applicable, right? But like when people are trying to do their businesses and everything, usually the fear of like failing, like, and I know we're having like a we're going deeper into this, like the fear of failure, like it takes into them, like especially when they have like kids and family. So, is there like a certain like mindset that you had which allowed you to push through any like any obstacles that were there regarding like that surrounding that?
I've been blessed with a great wife and two remarkable kids, and it was them that actually made me keep being. I started the firm when my children were both, I think both were in diapers. Yeah. Well, one was out, maybe one was in, but they were really young. My wife was working in sales, and I told her that I wanted to do this. She supported me. I think that's a huge, huge advantage I had, that I had a spouse that supported me, and she knew what I bit off. I had planned. I had prepped. She knew what I was biting off and what I was trying to do. She supported me, and then I wouldn't allow myself to fail because of my family. And if that meant working, 6, 7 days a week, that's what I did. And hours, I didn't count them because I would have been depressed for what I was making versus how much I was working. But it was that I wanted to push my family lineage ahead. I wanted to give my kids a better life than I had. And that got rid of a lot of fear, because you're pursuing something that's bigger than yourself.
So, John, one thing I'm really curious about asking you is that I know you have a very successful you had a very successful firm which managed over like 3 billion in dollars, right? And how did you go about handling all of like this money? Like, is there like a way to like as you grow like in success in business, is there a way to handle money like in the millions and all of that
Yeah,
compared?
we're an SEC registered RIA and a FINRA registered broker dealer. We have 160 brokers, I believe, that work for us, and we're just under 4 billion. And it's assets under management, and we do some active management for clients. I have a staff now of, I think our staff is just under 40. I think it's 39, and we work specifically to support those brokers, and those brokers in turn have their own offices and they market under their own name, but we've created an investment platform and a compliance platform and infrastructure for an independent broker to hold out their own practice. And we compete against people that are firms that are, uh, so much larger. They manage trillions of dollars, where we're just in the low billions. So, we serve mom and pop. We take care of them hard. We old fashioned world ethics of a handshake and a look in the eye means something to somebody. And we've worked very hard to build that platform. So it is family oriented, but yet it is very competitive.
So, John, a lot of people are looking at the economy right now, and they see like there's a lot of ups and downs going on, and then they're looking to invest, right? But some people say they want to invest in stocks, whereas others want to go into real estate, others want to go to gold and silver. So, from your perspective, what is how should a person would who wants to invest successfully go about looking at the economy and make investments wisely?
I think they've got to hire a professional like the ones in which we work with. They have a much broader base of professional to sit down and determine a numeric risk tolerance, and to go through and to look at all of those particular asset classes you mentioned, and see what matches their risk tolerance and also with their goals and objectives. And you can do it on yourself. You can do it by yourself, but um, there's a lot of things you can do by yourself, but you can't move your own goals and initiative forward if you're doing someone else's job. So I always say hire an advisor, make sure they discuss, what they charge, make sure, you know what the deliverables are, what the client engagement is, hold them accountable, but hire a professional to help go through all of that because it starts with what your goals are and what your needs are, and then backing it into a risk tolerance and finding the right solutions for you. You can put 100 people in the room and you're going to have 100 different answers for a true professional. It's not a cookie cutter approach, and that's what you get with a lot of independence in the space in which I deal with.
No, I mean totally. Like, you should always go with people that know what they're doing. But a lot of people have difficulty finding the right people, right? Because there's so many. Today we live in an age of like information where there's like too much information through the internet, and people are always looking for like the right people to trust and the right places to look at. So that's something that.
Cosmo, it's brilliant in what you said. It's a great observation because I'm a little older than you, and it used to be that information, Richard Milhous Nixon said information is power, right? I think he's the one that's attributed to that quote. Now information is literally in the palm of your hands. You're a Library of Congress, right? You can get any answer you want.
Yeah.
It's not information anymore. It's like when we were a younger firm, we had to buy research from firms. Now we get research from firms that you would know the name of for free because they want to work with us. It's the interpretation of the information that's truly key, and where there's an art and science in what we do in financial planning. The science is the math. The art is interpreting that math for the benefit of the client. So I think what you said is really wise there and then the second part of your question, if I understood it, was that where do you find a professional like that? You can go on, there's a lot of government sites. You can go look at people's backgrounds. You can look at their regulatory history. You can look at, the CFP, CHFC. Those are organizations where it's education after your collegiate years, in which you go and you find skill your tools. They teach you all the financial principles and things of that, and there's some testing. So I would get accredited advisor that has a solid reputation with a firm. I would always use a major custodian, and by that I mean somebody holding the money, like a Fidelity or a Schwab. They hold the money. I would make sure that they're doing that. Obviously, not a local firm. Use a local firm, but make sure they have custodial arrangements with a firm that you're comfortable with, because they actually hold the money. So, just sort of my thoughts off the top of the head.
So, John, another thing that I wanted to ask you, right, is regarding like like you've had a very successful career. Like, what are some of the lessons you learned over your time in the finance industry that you'd like to share with the audience, which you think they should know?
I think you should trust but verify. I know it's an old saying, but there are relationships I've had that I've trusted and I didn't verify, and I paid the price, either financially or emotionally, or with losing strategic alliances. I think that's a big one. I think the other one is listen. Listen to what people say, watch their mannerisms. That sells more than what they'll actually say in words. And then the third one is probably grit. Make sure that you have grit and perseverance to obtain and go your goals. It's not if you're going to get knocked down, it's how many times you can get up after you get knocked down is going to determine your success.
So, John, it actually reminds me of I had a conversation with like one of my friends, and he always told me that there's two things that you need for success. One is trust, and the other is discipline, and that with that comes grit and perseverance. But like for truly successful people, they have to have both, like both trust and the discipline to continue in the face of obstacles. But the question is, how do you a lot of times people put on masks, right? Like where they seem trusting, and like especially if you want to partner up with somebody for like to create a company, or you're dealing with like other people in the industry. Is there like a certain like red flags or green flags that you have from your perspective that can help you understand if you can trust somebody or not?
Yeah, I use four business filters, and I developed these along the way. One is are we aligned? So if you and I are going to go in business, we have the same alignment, the same type of goals, the same objectives, the same aspirations. Two, are you ethical? Can you look at your partner and see if he's ethical? And you do that by looking at the way they handle their family, the way they've handled past relationships, what their environment around themselves. I mean, people that aren't ethical don't have close friends. You know, most of my friends are from 9 to 11 years old. Those are my closest friends that are still to this day, and I'm in my 60s. Um, it's got to be then the third thing has got to be profitable. There's been times that I've out negotiated somebody and they've out negotiated me, and those relationships never last. So is it profitable for both parties? And then the third or fourth one, excuse me, which seems sort of corny, but is it fun? I mean, do you enjoy working with a person? I mean, there are people that I have to pick up the phone and answer a call because they're a business relationship of mine, a strategic alliance maybe, and they're difficult. They're a pain. I don't enjoy picking up the phone. I have to because I have a professional responsibility, but I don't like being with them. The people that I'm most successful with are people that we enjoy common goals. We enjoy a cigar, a bourbon, a hunting trip. There's certain things that we do that we enjoy each other's company. Those are really, to me, those four filters are how I take a look at if I'm going to be interested in a business or working with somebody on a business.
John, I find it very fascinating. Like what you're saying is absolutely right about ethics and like creating like a win-win situation, right? Because this leads to like a long-term healthy, like business relationship. But however, like the vision that like most the 99% America have is of like like corporate America or like Wall Street or like these big investment firms. They're pretty cutthroat, and it's like a win-lose zero-sum type of game where somebody, in order for somebody to,
Yeah, there, you know, because there's enough problems going on to start a business, right? That
yeah.
that shouldn't be one of them. And you're so right. You were spot on that there's people that look at life as a zero sum game. But even if you find that person and you're in a relationship with them, it's not going to go anywhere. So if you exclude that zero sum game philosophy, which is very hard to do, which you just alluded to, look at all the other things that could go wrong in a business, right? Maybe you have two partners that don't have the same work ethic. That's happened to me, right? You're splitting $1.50. It's fair, but you got a guy working 80 hours a week and a guy working 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week. Those relationships don't last. So there's a lot of there's a multitude of factors that go in there, but yeah, the zero sum game is you're starting to see that with the younger generation that they're moving that out of the workplace. They're moving that out of corporate America, where that used to be when I was coming up. A zero sum game was I win, you lose, haha, and you move on to your next conquest. Um, I'm not seeing a great deal of that more now. Again, in the hedge fund, private equity, those guys they live in a different world, right? But the common people like myself, no, you don't see that. You want everyone to sort of get along. And I'm not saying I don't want to win. I'm a fierce competitor. I throw elbows. I'm not going to play nicely to my competitors, right? But I also am going to make sure that my partners have the benefit of that.
No, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, John. Like when I first came to America, right, and I was trying to understand American culture, and I asked one of my friends, like, what is a good way of understanding American culture? He's like, like I think there was a movie called Wall Street, like with Gordon Gekko, and
Yeah.
it was like there's this famous actor, Charlie Sheen, and then Gordon Gekko, and there was this speech about greed is good, and he's like this 30-second speech over here basically symbolizes like especially like 1980s America. But I didn't know how much of that was true. But over the years, I realized that there's like multiple versions where some of it is true, but some of it is not.
Yeah, I mean that's one good thing about Hollywood, right? They can create a story any way they want. I think there is still some of that in the world, and that's fine for those guys that want to play in that arena. The great thing about America is that anybody can play in any arena they want. So if that's what turns your crank and you get excited about that zero sum game, there's a ton of things you can find and do that in life. That's just not the path I wanted. I want to, the first part of my life was about making income. Now it's about making impact. So I want to make sure that I'm leaving the industry in a little bit better place than I found it. And I've made a great living along the way. We've built a good company, and it's not just me. It's people like Kevin Burwell, Bill Best, Don Carlson, Brian Yarch, Heather Chrisman. I've got a lot of people around me that are really talented and good people, and we all try to help each other. Uh, and you can find environments like that. You might have to bumble through it like I did. It took me many years to put this all together. And I had a lot of failures on the way, people that I believed and trusted. And some of them were zero-sum games. Some got jealous, and some didn't want to work. There's a multitude there's more things that can go wrong than can go forward. It just takes the perseverance of an individual to realize that, as you're aware, there are countries where you can be born and never have a chance at greatness. Here, you can become great. It's not easy, but you don't have the world stacked against you. Here, you've got an opportunity, and you just got to fight for it. Hopefully, it's not as vicious as Wall Street, even though I got to admit, my younger days, I had that whole movie memorized. Uh, so I had that greed is good speech memorized. There's another good one that was ruthless. Glenn Ross, with Stephen or Alec Baldwin, one of the Baldwin guys. But yeah, there's a couple great things in there, and we used to always use those chats, and we were talking to each other at the bar, messing around. But there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. You got to find out who you are first, and then determine what area you want to play. But the great thing about this country is there's all those venues, all those different opportunities. You just got to know yourself, be true, have some good self-awareness, and then find the right opportunity, and then work like the devil.
So, John, one thing I wanted to ask you, and I think the audience can learn from you, is so while you're growing a business or a firm, right, at some point you have to understand people and deal with different types of people as your employees, staff, and all of that. So, from a human resource perspective, how do you handle difficult employees or people that are difficult? And what is there like a strategy or a method to it?
Um, what I have done is I found out early in my career I'm really good at some things, and like every human, I'm really flawed. So there's a lot of things I don't do well. So I've gone and tried to hire people, excuse me, that are really good in the areas that I'm not. Human resources is an area that I'm not. I don't have a lot of patience. I don't have a lot of issues. So what I did is, my chief of staff, who's been with me now 17 years, she started as my assistant. I think maybe even as a receptionist. And she has grown tremendously. We've invested in her. We've given her every opportunity to become better and stronger, and now she handles all of that. So she knows me like the back of her hand. She handles all of our HR issues and all of those items. If it's a financial matter, my CFO, my COO, Bill Best, is an extraordinary numbers guy, and he'll crunch through them. He's better at it than I'll ever be. So I allow him to do that. So as you're self-aware, you shore up your shortcomings with people that are talented and that you can trust, and you'll fail along the way there. But you keep trying, and slowly you start building a team, and a team that you can trust and rely on. It's very difficult for one person to do everything, and that's one of the reasons why, a self-owned business. I don't know what the statistic is recently. I know I read it in the past. It's like 86% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, and it's because you're trying to wear too many hats. Now, the cool thing about the world we live in now is you can outsource a lot of that stuff. You can outsource your phone calls. You don't need a receptionist. You could use a phone call outsource. You can do your HR outsource. You can do a part-time CFO. So all those skill sets that I was so poor at, you now can outsource to vendors, and allow you to grow quicker than when I tried to do it on my own and then hiring the wrong person. So build a team, or know yourself, build a team uh, in your likeness, but without your flaws, is my first suggestion. And then as you're doing it, you can outsource a lot of those things. I work with a lot of people that have a part-time CFO. They're just not big enough to have a full-time CFO. But it's nice to have those people work with Bill, my CFO, to get issues done and to get sort of hair off the deals and to put deals in place.
So John, what you said is so relevant in the form in the form of like one word, which is like delegation. What you're basically saying is that you delegate it to the right people. But a lot of people that do like businesses, they end up creating a self-created prison, like where because they're micromanaging everything and they're trying to get everything done by themselves because they don't have a lot of trust in other people to get it done. But ultimately, if you want to create a big organization or a big business or a firm, you have to delegate and it has to be done to the right people.
Yeah, you hit when you were saying this, I was thinking a lot of the brokers that join our firm, right? So they're independent. They might have their own company name like McGillicuddy Wealth Management, but they clear through our firm. Um, One of the things that I try to do, practice management, is teach them a process for everything. So a client process. What they're selling isn't an individual stock selection or an annuity or life insurance or a mutual fund or private. That's not what you're selling. You're selling a process to get a client from point A to point B. And whatever their point B is, maybe it's retirement, maybe it's college funding, whatever it is, that's obviously the client's need. You work your process to that. And you have an onboarding process for your clients. So when they onboard, you do A, B, C, D, right? So you can systematize things. You can have 80% of your process should be standardized, 20% should be customized. So that customization has that high touch feel, right? It has that where, wow, he's really only talking to me, even though this is the same process we use with all our clients. It's just customized. So they feel like they're wanted and they're appreciated and they're needed to be in the firm. Um, that allows all these processes allows you can scale processes you can't scale yourself. So now that we have a client boarding process, I can hire someone to board that, and that's one less rule and responsibility that I'm responsible for everything as the owner and the CEO. But now I can just manage. I can check in instead of living that day to day to day to day, right? And now I can focus in when you get that one key person. I can focus in on something else. So it's a way to expand and to do it logically, but you have to have all the processes in place. And your processes will change. They're not written in stone, but it allows you to give a track record or a guideline for people so that they can be successful and that they can build things in the way in which you envision them.
You know, Jara, it reminds me of this one saying, like wealth is created by systems, not by people. Like once you create like like a successful business is ultimately like a system, and it can be duplicated. And once you do that, that's where the wealth comes. So
Yeah, there's a great book by Gino Wickman called Traction, and it's about building an EOS, a dashboard. And if you're building a business, you should really think about that dashboard as your end thing. So I get certain reports every day from my team, and there's certain key indicators that I look at to see if we're firing on all cylinders. And that's real important to get. And that's sort of an end goal for everybody starting a business to have that EOS. And what it allows you to do, it's a dashboard. It'll see your business so you can take snapshots so you can make intelligent decisions.
So, John, let's say there's somebody that's listening to this podcast that's inspired by what you've done, and they want to follow in your footsteps and then they go into the industry and start their own firm. Well, what do you think how do you think they should go about doing it? Is there like any challenges or pitfalls they should avoid?
I wrote a book. I'm sort of embarrassed about it. 2014, I wrote a book, and I call it Choices and Chances. You can get it on Amazon with my last name. Um, And I told my partner, Kevin Burwell, when we wrote this mission retirement book, that it's really sort of outdated. I should rewrite it. And he goes, absolutely not. He says, don't touch that book. He goes, when you wrote that book, you were 415 million under assets under management. And now you're just under four. You've done almost 10x in 10 years. He goes, you were like Babe Ruth. You called your shot and said, hey, I'm going to do this. Damn the torpedoes. And he says, you did. He goes, that's a sort of a living testament of how you did it. So I would start with there. Our coaching company is called Catalyst for Growth, and that's the number four. It's catalystforgrowth.org. And you can go on there and have a conversation with Kevin Burwell or myself. Kevin's an amazingly talented person. He was a national sales director for Pacific Life, and he's helped thousands of brokers grow and learn. And you know, if I can help somebody that wants to follow in our firm's path, I'd be more than happy to assist them and just schedule a time and have an informal call, 30 minutes or so.
That's amazing, John. And John, one thing I wanted to understand is like, what is your perspective of the American dream? And like, when you think of the American dream, what does that exactly mean to you?
I think American dream is hope. I think everybody comes here, they have a hope to be in a better place than they were. I mean, I've had the blessings of traveling all over the world. I'm going to hit Antarctica this year. It's my seventh continent. I'll hit all the continents. It's been a
Antarctica
goal. It's been a goal of mine since the seventh grade. And so, my wife and I are going to Antarctica.
over there.
Yeah, it's sort of crazy. But we're going in December, and we're going to Antarctica. So I've had the really the blessings to travel all over, and I can't think of many other countries that you have the liberty. And we have our problems. Don't get me wrong. We're very tribal in our politics right now, but there's not a better country to start a business, to believe in yourself. And I think the old red, white, and blue. I think it gives you hope when you go there, and the amount of wealth we have here, as you're aware, is just absolutely staggering. You go to other countries, and our poorest of the poor would be middle class in some of these other places in the world. We've had a lot of blessings here, and I think the country offers hope, and that ability to, no matter who you are, if you have a good idea and you're willing to bust your hump, that you can make it here and create a better living for yourself and the people you love.
No, I mean, as an immigrant myself that became a citizen, I realized that yeah, in America, it's much more easier to start a business than anywhere else in the world because it's just different. Like, there's a lot of like obstacles in other countries, or like there's a lot of anti-business type of mentality. But here, it's just open-mindedness. Like, they don't look at like your status or anything. Like, you could be anybody, and as long as you start a business and it's based on merit, you will succeed.
Yeah, it's sort of funny. That's the way we think as Americans, right? But the rest of the world doesn't really understand that. When they come here, they just sort of don't believe it. I can remember when my relatives, when I was a kid, trying at that time, they were under occupied Russia, right? They were in Latvia, and they came over, and they were just astounded at the resources, and they thought it was almost a government plot, right? That they weren't getting to see the real America. And it's like, no, you're in Grand Rapids, Michigan. There isn't any more real America than that. And the government isn't going to put isn't fronting anything in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So it was real eye-opening that I realized that not everyone had the same opportunities. Um, and then as I went to school and as I got to see different things in the world, and I realized that we're just blessed. A lot of us are just plain blessed to be born here.
So, John, I actually like interviewed some people from like Eastern Europe on this podcast, and they always tell me about the contrast between like capitalism and communism. And it's just like extremely profound. Like, on one hand, you had lines for bread, and then on the other hand, you have like prosperity.
I'll have to just tell you a quick story. So the company's no longer around. It was Kmart. It was a low-end retailer in the United States. And when my relatives came from Latvia, my grandmother and my mom, who both immigrated here, my grandmother brought my mom when she was young. They went to Kmart, and again, this was low-end retail, and they bought jeans, literally just blue jeans, and filled up all of their luggage. All of their luggage was filled with blue jeans and extra luggage. And they realized that a third of it was going to get stolen and just going through customs, but that they would have enough that they could sell on the black market, that they would be able to pay for their next trip to America. They
Wow,
literally funded it on low end blue jeans.
that
And I'm
is
not talking Levi's. I'm talking, I, I don't even know what Kmart, I mean, I don't know what the brand was, but it wasn't a high end brand, but they would literally, so they knew that customs would steal a third of it or a half of it, but they'd still be left enough to pay for their trip back.
that is insane. Like,
Yeah, when you
wow.
think about it, it's absolutely crazy. I can't imagine going to a country knowing that there's going to be that much corruption, and then in turn knowing that I can make that much money off of a dry good to come back. I mean, and we complain about Nike's margins or Apple's. The blue jean market in the late '70s in the Baltic countries far surpassed that margin wise.
So I feel like you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like morality and like a lot of the countries like where there was like communism or anything, like the morality and the corruption, the lack of morality and corruption led to a lot of poverty. But like in the places where there's trust in business, like in America, like relative to these other countries, then there's more chance of prosperity. So essentially, you need morality in the long term to create prosperity.
Yeah, and I think you said the word earlier, discipline, right? There's discipline when you have standards, right? So our accounting principles here are they're pretty stringent, right? Our rules and regs. And again, do we have a lot of things to improve in our government? Do we have a lot of things as Americans that just don't make common sense, right? And do we need to change? Yes. But when you just a standardized counting procedure, if you don't have that with between countries or within your country, how do you if you know your numbers are any good? And
Hmm.
we have that fortune, we have that discipline that those things are, our legal system is pretty standardized. Our accounting systems are pretty standardized. That discipline of standardization allows business to grow faster than it would without it because you can trust and believe that number one, there's ramifications for your actions, but also that the numbers you're seeing are true. And that wasn't, in the Baltics, that wasn't the case. The numbers were not what you saw. You
Hmm.
see that in some Asian countries, right? The accounting's done a little bit differently. So you got to be careful with that. We don't have those issues in the United States.
No, I know. Like a lot of times we take things for granted over here, but like it's only when we travel to the outside world, which is why I think that everybody should travel at some point in their lives to just understand
Or
the contrasts.
or Cosmos, listen to someone like yourself who came here and became a US citizen, right? And again, I'm all for immigration as long as it's done legally. My grandparents were sponsored by the Catholic Church. They fled the Russians as the Russians came into Latvia. They fled to Germany. They were picked up by the Catholic Church and sponsored, and they were moved to Michigan, right, with nothing in their pocket, like every other immigrant. If I ever hear an immigrant comes with money in their pocket, I'll be absolutely surprised. We all hear the story of like I came with $3 or 20. That's how everybody comes, right?
Mhm.
And they work their way through. And my uncle ended up being a doctor. My grandparents were furniture workers. They worked in a factory. My uncle was a doctor from graduated University of Michigan. My mom became a teacher. Is still alive today. She's 84 years old. And I look at all the lives that she touched while she was teaching. She taught for 34 years. Um, she left the world, or she's left her mark.
No, totally. Like, I think it's like, yeah, as immigrants, like you usually come, but like you work your way, and it's just the way the country is where it just gives opportunity, which is why it's so extraordinary. But John, I wanted to ask you about your book. I know you wrote a book called Mission Retirement, and can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about that and what that is about?
Certainly. So, we've already talked a little bit that I have a financial service firm, and we deal with the science of money, right? There's also the art of money, and what we've been finding. Kevin Burwell is my co-author in it, and Kevin is a extraordinary talent. Kevin and we were speaking at a conference in Arizona, and we were approached by someone to talk about planning for retirement. And Kevin and I first jumped in with our finance hats on. And that's not what this gentleman was asking. He was asking about the art of retirement and how do you have a fulfilling retirement. And so what we did, that was sort of that night, we jotted down the book and outline at the bar, the initial one. And what we created was Mission Retirement, which is a very short book. It's got questions on the back of each chapter. There's only 10 chapters. It's real simple. You can read it in an hour. So I think it's 130 pages. But it guides you to write a mission statement. What's your mission statement? What you want to do and be in retirement. And it talks about families and friends and your hobbies and interests, health and wellness, intellectual activities, how to keep yourself, sharp in retirement, leisure and sports, travel, exploring new cultures, which you and I talked about. Mission 8 is spiritual activities. 9 is stewardship and investing and giving back. And then 10 is your legacy. And so all this does is sort of outline your thoughts. And it's thought provoking. You should sit down with your spouse and go through the book. And what it does is it give you an outline. Everybody says when they retire, they want to go play golf. I want to see travel. And well, that's great after 6 months or a year. Now what do you got? You're going to live 30 years in retirement. 30 years. So how am I going to give back? Am I going to help a younger generation with my skills and resources, times and talent? Or how am I going to leave my mark? Do I have some relationships that are broken that I should go back and mend maybe? You know, uh, how is my family going to remember me? How am I going to leave my mark? And this sort of, by doing all of this, and again, it's not hard. It's said 130 pages or so, and there's questions like a little workbook you can write on them. You can go to our website and pull off a whole launch page that we have. But what it allows you to do is focus in on what's important to you, and then money, what you've saved, gives you the liberty to do what you want to do. But the liberty itself, having the money, doesn't mean you're going to have a good retirement. You're going to have a good retirement if you plan for it.
Yeah,
So that's what the book does.
no, I would definitely recommend like whoever's listening is to definitely take a look at your book and read it because it's relevant, right? Because after a certain point, you make money, like you attain a certain level of freedom. What is ultimately the purpose of life? Like it's developing connections, keeping in touch with your friends and family. Like there's more to life, and like this is where like I think spirituality and like the idea of legacy comes in because you have to like a lot of times you realize that sometimes your life is meant to serve a higher purpose, but people don't realize that until like much later.
Yeah, I look at this, I give the analogy of a merry-go-round, if you're in a playground and you're a kid and you're spinning around the merry-go-round going fast and fast and that's sort of your working years. And all of a sudden you got a buddy who's a smart aleck who, jams a stick in the merry-go-round or grabs it and you stop really abruptly, right? It's, you jar, you get a little bit of whiplash. That's what retirement's like. So you work for 40 years, 30 years, and all of a sudden, boom, it's time to retire. And if you haven't planned and thought through that, there's a scary fact, and this is in the book. 40% of all seniors are lonely in retirement.
Wow.
40%. I can't imagine, guys, with working 30, 40 years with the end goal of being lonely. It's just horrible. So we know if you go through these 10 retirement missions, and you can pick 2 or 3 of them. You don't have to do all 10, but it'll give you a much better start at being successful in that retirement and having a much more fulfilling retirement than it would be by just, sitting down with your broker and talking about how much you made last year and that you can take that one trip. It's bigger than that. It's how you're gonna leave your legacy. So when your grandkids are talking around, they'll be like, Grandpa went on all 7 continents. He believed on travel. He believed in helping people. And this is what he did. What a great lesson to give to people that you may never even meet that are
No,
part of your family. That, you talk about what the American dream is. That's the American dream.
no, I mean, what you mentioned about loneliness is true. Like a lot of people feel lonely, and it's kind of strange because like we live in an age of like social media, and like we live in a digital age where communications become easier. But ironically, it's like a paradox. The more people have gotten together in the digital age, the more they become isolated in like real life. So it's the ultimate irony.
No, it is. It is. And very smart to point that out. But yeah, we live it and we don't even realize we're living in it. You know?
So, John, I know you also had like the C4G Sales Success podcast. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about your podcast and what it's about?
Yeah, what I've done is a much smaller focus than what you're trying to accomplish in your podcast, and that's why it's an honor to be here. I'm trying to get people that are like-minded individuals to talk about their trials and tribulations in the financial service sector. It's for all salespeople, but predominantly 90% of what we focus in on is um, success in the financial service industry. And that means my son's working on his doctorate in leadership. He does a couple segments about raising children. He played lacrosse at a high level, and he's in there. I've got an Olympic athlete on talking about what leadership is and what training and discipline. And I've got a bunch of industry people that I get to interview. We have a little fun doing it, but it's really Catalyst for Growth. The podcast is set up specifically for financial sales people. As I said, that's about 90% of our audience. But we focus on, hey, they can get better, growing. I truly believe if you can grow 1% a week, by the end of the year, you're 50% better. And if you can't change your life overnight, but you can change step by step. You can change a little bit every day, like the grain of sand, right? And if we do that over time, we're going to get better. So that's what we did. We see a lot of people in the independent financial service space struggling, looking for answers. And I just wanted to give what little I've accomplished and more importantly, a lot of people that I'm surrounded with, like the Bill Best, the Don Carlson, the Brian Yarch I mentioned earlier, they've all been on the podcast and given their insights on topics. And it's all there in one area for people to use and to learn from.
I would definitely want people listening to this to take a look at your podcast because they can learn a lot from it. And I appreciate that you are doing this podcast because like these days, a lot of people learn from like listening to other people's stories and how they have attained success and like their mistakes and their failures as well. So, John, is how can our audience connect with you and get to know more about you and your work and everything that you do?
Yeah, you can contact us. It's catalystforgrowth.org, and it's the word catalyst, the number four growth, and that's all one word, catalystforgrowth.org. And you can go on there, you can request an individual consultation from us or just a chat to see if there's maybe some synergy of the working together. You can purchase the book on Amazon. If you want to get the book in bulk, uh, if you're a financial advisor or if you're an HR director, this book can be used by many different, not just financial advisors, but many other industries. If you want to get it in bulk, you can contact us and we've got a discount on a bulk price. Amazon and Bezos, they make their money on those individual sales. So we've got a bulk rate to help people out. And we can also do a customized forward so they can write the forward and have their face on the cover is another option. So just contact us at catalystforgrowth.org and we'll take care of you.
That is amazing, John. And John, I'm so thankful and grateful that you took the time to come on this podcast and share your story and like the lessons that you have learned. And this is so important for today's world because a lot of people are trying to figure out how to become financially free. And when they learn the mindset and the tactics, that's when success happens. And I do hope that you take the time to come back at a later date.
I'd love to. And it's an honor to be here. I appreciate you allowed me to share a little bit of my story and tell people about what we've been working on in the last year. So it's been an honor to be here.
No, thank you, John. And I want to conclude this episode by letting my fellow extraordinary Americans know that, hey, look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us, and it's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. Until next time, bye for now. Hey, everyone. Thank you for watching Extraordinary America. If you like what you see, please do subscribe to our podcast and share it with others. Remember that the best investment that you can make in your lifetime is in your own financial education, for it is knowledge that truly sets us free. Also, remember that inflation is diluting your purchasing power, which in turn increases financial bondage. The practical thing to do is to protect the loss of your purchasing power and invest in precious metals or the right cryptocurrencies. Lastly, never forget that you are an extraordinary American. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.